Good evening and welcome to SVG-TV News for Thursday, June 18th, 2015. I'm Lafern Fraser with the details. KFC St Vincent is back on the rise. The franchise has been officially awarded by Yum Restaurants Incorporated to Mr. Kelly and Miss Tessa Glass. The new franchise holders say they are working on building back the brand to its full potential and relaunching in St. Vincent as soon as possible. The father-daughter team said there is a lot of work that needs to be done to get KFC up and running, as they have very high standards and intend to do it right from the start. They ask that the public remain patient while they work to get the outlets open as quickly as possible. The new franchise holders say it is unfortunate that they will not be able to open for Carnival this year, as there's simply not enough time to prepare, and that they intend to reopen each store separately. An open call for all vacancies at KFC has been set for Tuesday, June 23, 2015 at Blue Lagoon Hotel in Rathamil. St. Vincent and the Grenadines was among 29 countries recently recognized in Rome for at least halving both the extent of poverty and undernourishment in their respective countries. Speaking to members of the media yesterday, Prime Minister Dr. Alf Gonsalves says the recognition served as an important reminder of the outstanding work done by the countries in addressing the important issue of undernourishment and for also meeting the Millennium Development Goal 1C, which deals specifically with poverty reduction.
Occasion, 79 countries were identified as having met Millennium Development Goal number 1C, halving the number of persons living in extreme poverty, what we call indigent dirt poor poverty. But there are only 29 countries which had both reduced the extent of the poverty and the extent of the undernourishment. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines was one of those special 29.
Dr. Gonsalves describes SVG's achievement as a remarkable one for a country of 110,000 people, 150 square miles, and all the difficulties confronting it.
I know the majority of persons at home recognize it, but I don't think it has hit a sufficiency of persons deep in their consciousness as to the real significance of this. I mean, it's an extraordinary achievement. It is something which accords with biblical engagement. The Bible is replete with references about the need for us to take care of the poor.
It is inappropriate and wrong for a public servant to enter into any discussion on behalf of a specific political party. That's according to this country's Prime Minister, Dr. Alf Gonsalves, while responding to a question posed by the media yesterday on whether the Public Service Act was recently breached by a permanent secretary here who is associated with the ruling Unity Labour Party. Reports are that the public servant was among representatives of the ULP who attended a meeting which was hosted by the Supervisor of Elections to address the issue of the voters list with the two main political parties here. Prime Minister Gonsalves says while he was briefed on the matter, he does not know all the facts, but explains that it will be inappropriate and wrong for a public servant to enter into discussions on behalf of a political party with any office holder.
That shouldn't happen. That's why I say inappropriate and wrong. I don't know whether it's a legal wrong, because I'll have to I don't like to speak of the law unless the provision is in front of me. And if I'm not every particular legal provision I'm familiar with, I could look it up and I could find the answer. But I'm speaking as a matter of principle that it would be inappropriate and wrong in the sense of its inappropriateness for that to happen. I don't, however, think that the leader of the opposition is particularly well placed to speak on that subject. And I will just talk about taking the beam out of somebody's eye and leaving the mote in your own.
Politician and religious rights leader Anicia Batiste says Vincentians need to be aware of the human rights laws and their religious rights. Speaking to SVG-TV News yesterday, Batiste says Christians in particular are under attack globally and that many persons are trying to force them to accept their religious views and lifestyles while attempting to silence their religion. According to Batiste, though the United Nations and other human rights groups are attempting to place pressure on this country and other Caribbean countries to decriminalize homosexuality with the argument that this hinders their steps toward treating persons with HIV, citizens have to be aware of the fact that the freedom to choose a lifestyle is not a basic human right, and that each individual has the privilege to their desired lifestyle without infringing on the rights of others.
United Nations and other agencies around the world are putting pressures on Caribbean governments to remove our anti-buggery laws. And they're saying that by having laws that criminalize the act of buggery, we are interfering with their steps to deal with HIV/AIDS. Yet we know that countries that had decriminalized buggery for many years, like the country of France, who decriminalized buggery since in the 1970s, they have one of the highest incidents of HIV/AIDS. So there are flawed arguments being used to try to put pressure upon our country and our governments to accept this perverted sexual behavior. One of the arguments is that it is their right. Rights and freedoms are neutral. A person may have freedom of choice. We all have freedom of choice. But you may use your freedom of choice to do wrong. I may use mine to do right. What we choose to do with our freedom of choice is not the right. We must not confuse what you choose to do with your freedom with the freedom itself.
And first freedom consultant of the Thusian Institute for Religious Rights, Chef Lorne Ballantyne, is encouraging Vincentians to be more educated on the issues that affect and or infringe upon their rights. Ballantyne pointed out that because of the ISIS uprising in the Middle East, many countries are contemplating banning Muslims, and that cannot be right. He says here in SVG there are peaceful Muslims who will be affected by this, and other solutions must be conceptualized to protect SVG against terrorism without hurting innocent people.
But in St Vincent, we, each of us, and as a country as a whole, will have to take a position on this matter. And so it is only if we are properly and adequately educated that we can take the correct position, a position that will not cause us to violate people's rights and freedoms, a position that will not cause us to be a laughing stock, an embarrassment, but a position that still upholds people's rights and freedoms. But we need to ensure that we do our job as an institute in educating people so that they will be able to take the correct position and not just a heavy-handed position against people which violates people's rights and freedoms.
A religious liberty dialogue is taking place at the Peace Memorial Hall to mark the 8th anniversary of the Thusian Institute for Religious Liberty Incorporated. Send the Right Message, that was put forward to the participants at a communication and interview technique training workshop held yesterday by the National Council for Women at the NIS Conference Room in Kingstown. The workshop was held under the theme, Let Women Be Seen and Heard. President of the NCW, Beverly Richards, says women need to work together to uplift each other, and it is only then they will be taken seriously by the opposite sex.
I want persons to know that women must be respected. And the sensitivity of the reporting, even you women talking about another woman, we want you to be sensitive about that, because you can create a lot of hurt. There's a saying that goes like this: women are their own enemy. And we need to remove that saying and say that women are standing up for women. Okay, so hence the sensitivity. We want to remove all that degradation that we would speak of sometimes, and try to bring us together as women, and only so when we bring ourselves together and band ourselves together, then we are a force. If we go fighting, the men will see that we are not together, and they will not want to work along with us.
Presenter, communication specialist, journalist and poet Jimmy Prince says that though women are of the opinion that they should carry the burden of society on their shoulders, they fail to realize the authority and the level of control that they hold on society.
That women actually carry the burden of the society on their shoulders. Not that I didn't know it, but it didn't come to me in the way that it has come this morning. That people get up and proudly say, listen man, my greatest achievement, I have 3 grandchildren, I have 2 children, you know. And that is interesting. And when I look at the theme, let women be seen and heard, I get the impression too that women, you think that women are not seen enough, they're not heard enough. But at the same time, the women run things. In church these days, and you will look at it, probably you will take it for granted, in church these days there are no men. In the carnival bands, there are no men. On the streets, in the markets, everywhere. And as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking that there is a responsibility on women to make sure that men continue to be part of the society. That we are actually having a crisis that will affect women sooner or later.
Members of the Police Welfare Association in the respective territories across the region are being encouraged to guide their fellow colleagues who have failed to reach the required standard of policing in the right direction. The challenge was put out by this country's Commissioner of Police, Michael Charles, as he addressed the opening ceremony, which wraps up here today. Commissioner Charles says the various associations should not only seek to champion the welfare of members, but work along with the commissioners and senior officers to get their colleagues fully engaged in effective policing.
I also encourage you to foster a better relationship with your commissioners, with a view of developing strategies to counter crime and violence, and providing training opportunities for your fellow officers. As you continue to highlight the concerns and issues that are important to your membership, I want you to know that you will find no better ally than the Commissioner of Police in your respective forces. In your relentless quest to improve the standard of policing, standard of living, and working condition of your colleagues, while you are charged with the responsibility of looking after the welfare of some officers, the Commissioner of Police is responsible for the welfare and the well-being and welfare of every police officer.
And Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police for St. Lucia, Moncherry, says police officers must always be proactive and relevant if they are to succeed. He is of the view that the theme of this year's conference should be adopted by some police forces and even some governments in the Caribbean region.
That most times, the challenges brought about are not just from the employer. It is also from the employee. And in some cases, from the police welfare associations. Because most times, all we talk about is wage. We need to also start talking about productivity, because the two of them go hand in hand. According to Helen Keller, until the great mass of the people shall be filled with a sense of responsibility for each other's welfare, social justice can never be attained. So whereas you have to be concerned about the welfare, you also have to be concerned about the welfare of the employer and not just the welfare of the employee.
DCP Moncherry commends the founding members of the Caribbean Federation of Police Welfare Associations, or CFPWA, for having the foresight to prepare for tomorrow with the formation of what he described as an important association.
There's an old adage that says, a small group of thoughtful people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Today, that small group has signified the change in working together towards creating synergies among the Caribbean Federation of Police Welfare Association members towards developing professionalism whilst pursuing equality. I'm of the view that there is definitely a need for the Federation to foster relations with heads of government, both at OECS level and at CARICOM. This may not be as easy as it seems, because we all know that some heads see the organization in a negative light. Most times, employers see associations and federations like this as the opponent. But it's not always, it should not always be seen that way. Because if you have a good relationship with your association, then a lot of the things that would happen, you can help stop that.
A medical team from Venezuela will arrive in SVG next week to perform eye surgeries at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital on approximately 300 patients. A release from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment says professionals at the Medical Records Unit at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital have been charged with the responsibility of contacting persons who were pre-selected from the previous list. Upon being called, persons will go through a process of registration, electrocardiogram and blood tests, as well as x-rays. The ministry says 4 Venezuelan medical teams will travel here, to perform the surgeries during a period of 1 month, with each team consisting of 11 persons, including ophthalmologists, anesthesiologists, and nurses. Chief Education Officer Luann Gilchrist is appealing to students here to use the various technological devices to enhance their learning and not to get sidetracked by other elements. Addressing the 2015 RBC Young Leaders Award ceremony yesterday, Gilchrist told the students present that while the temptation could be great to depart from the responsible use of technology, for each irresponsible action there's a set of consequences which as adolescents they may not have the skills to cope with. Hence, they must be responsible.
You might not know this, but there are many instances in schools in which students end up in quite a lot of trouble because they have used technology irresponsibly. Technology is supposed to be used to enhance your lives and the lives of your families and your peers and your communities. Technology is not to be used to create mischief. It is not to be used to make yourselves antisocial. That is not what it is for. It is not to be used to create ill will. It is not to be used to promote all of the negative behaviors that in our health and family life education classes we are trying to suppress and extinguish. The laptops which you have are supposed to enhance your engagement with the curriculum, your engagement with the material which is meant to form for you a solid foundation upon which to build a meaningful and productive life.
The Chief Education Officer further encourages all students to think before they act and to be very careful what they put out in the cyber world.
Citizenship comes with every other privilege, with its attendant responsibilities. There is a set of desired behaviors to which you must adhere in all of your practices, in all aspects of your lives. Now, on the academic side, you know that these projects are not just for fun. You have to have fun while learning. Think about what you can take away from your participation in this program. What have you learned that is beneficial? What have you learned about yourselves? What have you learned about your peers? What have you learned about your communities, about the nation? And as a result, have you considered, students, what your role in national development ought to be?
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Trade, Commerce and Information Technology began a 3-day Geographical Indications workshop here today for stakeholders at the Ministry's conference room. Geographical Indications refers to where a certain region brands a product as exclusive, which adds value or gives importance to such an item. Featured speaker, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Nathaniel Williams, says the aim of the workshop is to increase the capacity of stakeholders in geographical indications. He added that identifying the technical assistance needs of the stakeholders and assisting in drafting and developing a geographical indication product specification is central to the workshop, along with the opportunity to explore alternative ways of adding value to local products.
The development of GI is an avenue for enabling Vincentian producers to identify the distinctive qualities of their products, possibly to justify higher prices and to protect their special characteristics from exploitation by producers of competing products. I received a call from the United Nations office in Paris, and they were querying some of our artifacts were found there. And they wanted to know how they got out of St Vincent to be there, because they were not represented by a Vincentian entity. They were represented by another entity which is not Vincentian. And we have to be careful that a lot of the uniqueness of our state is not lost to us.
The Permanent Secretary says it is important to note that in today's commercial world, the intellectual property value is more than the actual commodity.
Legislations need to be put in place and sensitization need to be done, and education at their different levels to let people realize the product you have sometimes is not, or seemingly is not as valuable as the intellectual property value in the product itself. No wonder the IP laws tend to turn the broad trade issue on its head by giving a level of protection that may not necessarily be seen in the normal trade laws under the WTO. It literally turned the WTO trade laws on its head.
Williams further states that the workshop brings St. Vincent and the Grenadines closer to identifying the distinctive island product and distributing at a premium price. One such product, he says, is arrowroot, which holds great potential in terms of production.
One example of a Vincentian product that can be identified to qualify as a GI, in our view, is the arrowroot and the arrowroot starch. This is in our view. Arrowroot was once the main crop of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It was processed into flour for making cookies, biscuit, and we all know the versatility of the product in itself. I believe if we can prove that the type of arrowroot starch which we have carries certain qualities which are distinctive to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and possibly the processing which takes place is distinctly represented in that it is done only in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There may be room for us to truly address the matter of some products here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Alistair Tombstone Smith, originally from Sion Hill, now residing at Prospect and Bayaboo, has been dragged before the court once again on 2 separate charges of deception. Smith is accused of entering the Korea City store on March 11, 2015 and obtaining a quantity of items by deception amounting to approximately $600. On the said date, he is accused of deceiving workers at the Floranium Services in obtaining a wreath amounting to $84. Smith appeared at the Kingstown Magistrates Court today before acting Senior Magistrate Carla James and pleaded not guilty to the charges. Court Prosecutor Sergeant Eglin Richards objected to his bail, stating that Smith was on bail for other charges when the alleged offenses were committed. He also stated that Smith should be kept off the streets for the festive season in an effort to keep him from committing further criminal acts. As a result, Smith was remanded into custody until July 14th, when the matters are expected to be heard. Carnival Beat is coming right up.
Start to wave, start to whine, start to
Rolling Ralph and the Professionals is this year catering for a total of some 250 masqueraders who will form part of the band's 7 sections, one of which is for children.
Rolling Ralph James, assistant band leader for Rolling Ralph and the Professionals, says her band is this year themed Carnival Fetes, which will be highlighting some of the top events that form part of Vincimas each year.
We have Soca Swing, we have White on the Dock, we have Black Rave, Wet Fete, Dirty Sexy Soca, Slippery When Wet, and of course the kids, the Cooler Fete.
All right. What section you find is going fastest?
Okay, the fastest section right now is Slippery When Wet. Yes, it's almost full out already. Okay. Registration so far generally it's been kind of slow, but we know Vincentian they normally wait until the last minute to come and register. And the Black Rave, of course, we're using that as our night section. Okay. I would like to encourage one and all to come out and play mass with us. And so far, I think we have the cheapest costume ever because with the financial difficulty we're going through right now, we're here to meet the needs of the people pocket.
James says she will be displaying the lone big costume that the band will be producing, a queen entitled Soca Diva. Reporting for SVG-TV News, I am Jamisha Wright.